I knew I was forgetting to do something.
So, hey, honeys and hunks. So, ignore what that said at the beginning. I got to adjust that, but whatever. We're back at it this week. The end of the bus or the end of the season bus is right down the block, and us and other teams, we're at full sprint mode to catch it because it's
Yep.
flying by, and we don't got the change for it right now. But as always, I am here with Jade Auxiliary Things Johnson. Getting that playoff fever now.
For sure. Like between my move, I got my new setup here, prioritize that after I move. Like I wanted to be ready because the playoff push is going to be, it's already crazy.
Yeah.
Like usually by this time, you kind of know who's making 8th seed. Right? There might be a game or two left in positioning that needs to be figured out, but like we're in a situation where teams could have the same record as teams that made the playoffs that don't make the playoffs.
Right.
Like that's insane. So yeah, I'm pumped.
Reminds me of a couple of years ago where the Suns, they were 48 and 42 or whatever it was. They had 48 wins and they still missed the playoffs. And that's such a heartbreaking thing to hear, to see with it all. And then also we got here today, we have Shay. Shay watches NBA Vassar. So in New York, is it playoff buzz now because of the Knicks? What's going on there?
It's more focused on the Knicks. I mean, anytime that the Knicks are possibly in the running, it's a Knicks town. That's who they care about. You know, I think even if the Nets had ever made it further, you know, with a good team, with the big popular superstars, I don't think anyone would care as much as the Knicks even just like existing. You know, it's like they just love it. So I think it is what it is. It is what it is. And I mean, I get it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
I mean, your team's slowly flying out. But
Yeah.
So before we dive into it, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Hardcourt Honeys, on YouTube at Hardcourt Honeys, and then on Twitter at HC Honeys. So this week we will be going to keep it kind of an open umbrella for it all because both Eastern Conference and Western Conference, it's a real tight race coming up. So there's going to be a lot of free-flowing stuff because there's a lot of topics that are going to blend in with each other. The West, you're not so safe if you're not in the top 3. The East, if you go on a 3-game skid, you're going from the 5th and you might bump down to the 7th, but there's no way of you getting back up. So, and we will also be talking about how the ungodly roughing that has come this year.
Oh my God.
May not people that like to always blame the refs, but damn. This year.
That's exactly the right way to say it.
Damn. And as usual, we have our crazy antics. So we're going to dive into the Western Conference. We were just kind of talking about it. Is this tight as you can ever see? I mentioned a 48-win team Suns a couple years ago that came back, or that didn't make it. But now we're seeing from 4th seed to 11th, 12th seed, you get 3-4 bad games, and you're out, not even in the playoffs. You're out altogether.
Mm.
So, Jade, how would you feel as a team?
Man, I think it would be kind of a mixed bag because on the one hand, some of these teams got to be thinking any other year and we would have been a shoo-in.
Right.
Like any other season and our playoff hopes are locked. But on the other hand, there also must be a feeling of we have a chance. Like there's only so many games left, but we still have like a chance to get there if we can just like the last week, 2 weeks, I guess, of the season have never been, I don't think, as important as this year, just because it's so tight. Like, and like Taylor said, when you said it, I was thinking, unless you're top 3 in the West, you're not safe. That's crazy. Like top 3, the Suns are 11 games back in 4th. The Mavs are only 14 and a half games back in 11th. Like, what is going on? And then the drop off in truly bad teams is a lot bigger this year. Like the Spurs and the Rockets are 32 and 33 and a half in
That's Victor range.
right in the West, and then in the East, we got the Pistons are 29. There's more worse teams in leagues, but like the Pistons are 38, the Hornets are 29, the Magic are 22. But like other than that small handful of teams, everybody was competitive all season this year.
And if I'm looking at the standings now, so Kings lost last night to the Wolves, but when you look from 4th to the 11th, everyone won except 2 teams. But all the other teams, for the most part, are on like Suns. They're one back-to-back games row. Wolves were 4-winning streak. Pels, they're on a 5-win game streak.
Yeah.
They really dropped off for a bit, and now they're coming back. Warriors, they lost the other night.
Were they on the road? Because the Warriors only lose on the road this year, apparently.
We beat them at home. We beat them at home. And we didn't have Cat or Ant. Like, that was a team win. But, anywho, even the Thunder.
Oh my gosh, I know.
They're the 10th seed.
The Thunder are good.
Looking great.
They don't even have Chet.
No, like they
Holmgren.
Like, and this is why this year is so exciting, because there are so many teams that are either going to be just as good next year or are going to be better.
Right.
Next year than they like the Thunder specifically is one I was thinking about. I watched I don't remember which game of theirs I watched last week, but I got IPTV service, which means I get all the basketball.
Heck yes.
Everything. So there will be no more missing teams that I want to watch, but I don't get because I'm in Canada. And the Thunder's one of those teams because they are so talented.
Yeah.
And so young. Like, the sky, I think, is the limit for that team. Give me next season and into the season after that, and they are going to be a problem in the West if they keep on this trajectory.
No, I completely agree.
It's going to be on that up and up and up. And so, Shay, being in the bottom, being like the 8th and lower, or I should say 7th and 8th, are you just now trying to maintain a playoff spot, or are you trying to avoid the play-in? If you're them right now, is it just like, okay, we just got to get our spot in there, or are you still trying to be like, I don't want to be in here, even if I am technically in the playoffs?
That's a really hard question because the play-in is just, I bet that's hell mentally for players. Like, I just can't, like, I get it. I get why it's there. And it's not even like I don't agree with it. I just, as a player, would want to avoid that just because, like, also because of how close the stats are for these for those teams. It's just, there's so many good teams, especially in the West, where it's just like, they're so close to getting it that I don't know, like part of me would just be like, okay, we don't have to do the play-in. And maybe like there might be some players who are like, no, I'd rather do the play-in than miss the playoffs. But I personally I think I would buckle under pressure if I was a player.
There's got to be a like uptick on like mental health awareness for players at this point of the season.
Yeah.
Just among teammates. Just getting the random text that night being like, you okay, man? I'm a little stressed too. Don't worry, man. We're going to get through this.
You good? Yeah.
I remember when they first started talking about the play-in, and I still don't love it. I didn't love the idea. I remember being really vocal about it, but like at this point, especially this season, it's really hard for me to argue with the results.
Exactly.
Because in previous seasons at this point, all the stars are resting. Nobody cares about games against the bottom teams because they don't matter. So like, you know, like there's that dip in the quality of basketball leading up to the playoffs, and nobody can afford to do that this year.
Yeah.
Everybody has to play every game unless you're like Taylor said, top 3 in the West, top
Top 4 in
anywhere.
the East.
4 in the East,
They're
yeah.
4 in the
4 already
East.
set in the East.
Are set. So like beyond that, every game matters for all of these teams. And I was talking to my roommate about, we're both Raptors fans, and he's been very like disappointed with the Raptors being a 500 team. And I said, but look at what being a 500 team means this season. Like
Yeah.
the top 6 and 7 in the East are only 533.
Exactly.
Top 6, 7 in the West are 513. Number 8 is the Pelicans. They're just over 500. So like being a 500 team this season is like not too shabby.
It's like the middle class. There's such a large middle class, and everyone forgets about it.
Everyone could be in it,
Upper class and the middle class, but then I was like, no, there's that middle class, and everyone's been overlooking at it. Jade, is this going to be, when it comes down to who's on a win streak? Is that what's going to kind of come down to it all?
I think it's going to be really important. Somebody asked me last week who I thought was going to win everything, and at the time, Boston was in a slump. The Nuggets were in a bit of a slump, and at that time, I said, based on what Boston and Denver are doing right now, I got to give it to Milwaukee, because Milwaukee was on that big winning streak. But things are swinging so quickly this year. But because of that, I think that momentum, that last 3-4 games, if you can win most of your last like handful of games, I think it's going to be really important, especially for the teams playing in the play-in tournament. Those other teams, everybody else is going to get a little bit of a rest while the play-in tournament works out and we figure out who 7 and 8 is going to be. So for those teams that are going to have to play in the tournament, so as things stand right now, that's the Heat, Hawks, Raptors, and Bulls in the East, and the Warriors, Pelicans, Lakers, and Thunder in the West. I think the last few games for those 8 teams are going to be really important to how does the play-in go? How does their first round go for the teams that get through the play-in tournament?
I think, yeah. Again, right now, you got me looking at some of the conference stuff right now, too. I'm just surprised that the Lakers have now bounced back this much, especially now with not being with LeBron, how they are the 9th seed. And they've gone 6-4 the last 10.
Well, and that's the thing is like, obviously the league wants the Lakers in. And then I know we're going to get into a little bit more about reffing and all of that, but there was, recently this overturning of Luka's latest technical, and immediately I went on Twitter to see, because I love drama. I want to see people's reaction to this. And immediately everyone's talking about, so they'll do that, but they're not overturning, I think it was specifically like Draymond's, because they're purposely trying to get the Mavs back in a position. And Luka's the league's golden boy right now. I think it's really hard to think, like, do you think the Mavs actually have a chance?
Nope.
I was going to say, that's what I don't get about these arguments where they're like, of course the league is trying to get them in the playoffs. I'm like,
it doesn't matter.
Right.
It literally, like, we know every year going into the first round, especially, certain teams are first round fodder. There's no way they're going to go into their first round matchup and come out with a best of 7 series. It's just not. And it's okay. That's okay for the Mavs to be that this year. Like, the Mavs haven't figured it out. They just haven't. And it's interesting because I'm starting to question both with the Mavs and with the Hawks. Is it going to work out with those guys, or do they need to be somewhere else? We've talked about it lots with Trey, but like with Luka now, it's starting to feel like, are you guys going to get the pieces around him or not?
Like, maybe they just should have, they should just trade now.
Trade back?
Like, they could trade back. Just, let's see how that works.
I think Trae Young could use a little Jason Kidd in his life. I think that would be good for him.
I think so.
Like, in the Mavericks have tried, technically Kristaps and Luka should have worked out much better.
Right.
Kristaps was hurt the whole time he was in Dallas.
Yeah. And if you look at what he's doing in
if they could have had that Kristaps, oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think that's for sure what I was hoping was going to happen in Dallas, because I'm a big Luka Doncic fan. I'm a big Porzingis fan. I'm so glad Porzingis finally seems to have his health stuff figured out, because it was starting to look like maybe it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
Luckily still, I mean, he's what now? 25, 26, because he's been in the league for 8 years now, so probably about 27.
Yeah.
So he's still got a good chunk of his career. If staying
sure.
healthy is right, he's got a good career left for him. But he's not going to be in the Western Conference or in the playoffs because that's just not his situation anymore. It's the Mavs are at the 11th seed that aren't going to make it. So, with all of that, so the Kings, though, we got to do the shout out for the Kings.
Yes.
Do the bandwagon for the Kings right now. Yes, I beat them last night. It was a great game, amazing game, both teams. But just they have some of the best overall offensive playing of the entire league right now this year. So they're 45-30. Jade and Shay and I, we were all talking last night. If Mike Brown does not win Coach of the Year, the league is rigged. They're going to probably
for sure.
They're going to put Darvin Ham from the Lakers being like, well, he was able to kind of get them closer to the playoffs. And it's like, no.
Yeah, I was watching a Nuggets game, and it was the Nuggets commentators on that game. And they were like talking about the Nuggets coach for Coach of the Year. I'm like, what do you mean?
No.
Why? What? No. What? Why? You have a 2-time MVP who's in the conversation for 3, and all of his help was healthy this year.
Exactly. No. Yeah.
No. If the Nuggets coach, man, I would be so upset. But honestly, there should not be. It should be a one-name conversation for Coach of the Year this year, as far as I'm concerned.
No.
How can it be anybody else but Mike Brown? Nobody saw the Kings coming.
Nope.
And even those of us who are basketball heads, and we know Sabonis is really good, and we know
De'Aaron Fox has been looked over forever.
Right. We are aware of those guys, and we still could not have predicted that they would be. And I saw a really funny thing online about their whole Light the Beam thing, because that was a promotion they started at the beginning of the season, which if the Kings had been bad, could have been really kind of awkward. Because if you never get to light it, that means you never really won games. But because they ended up being so good this year, it's just this huge thing that absolutely took off in Sacramento, which is so fun because Sacramento's one of those teams you forget about a lot of years.
Fans are loud too.
Are they?
Oh, they set a record for loudest arena.
I can imagine the history of being a Kings fan, especially if you were a Kings fan for the infamous finals that they got robbed of. This must be just the best thing in the world for those people who remember living through that and living through finding out that it wasn't just your imaginations. It actually was rigged. The refs were actually actively working against you. This isn't just that thing that all NBA fans say at one point or another.
Rigged.
Yes. No, this actually was. And the Kings have been irrelevant since then, up until this season. So how much fun to be a Kings fan right now.
Oh, it would be. And just think, I wanted them to, in their first playoff game, bring back all of the players that were on the last team and have them being like, hey, guys, remember me, Chris Webber? Do you remember me, Vlade Divac? Remember me, Mike Bibby? I don't know if Vlade Divac would be allowed on the court because he was the president a handful of years ago, and he gave a promise to the franchise, I will get us to the playoffs in 4 years. And if I don't, I will resign myself. He resigned.
He should be allowed then.
I still think so because Vlade Divac meant a lot to the franchise, but at the same time, it's kind of a sad way to go off as a franchise favorite to, I just really let you guys down.
Yeah, you can't make promises it's never a good idea to make promises
not 6,
like that.
Not 7, not 8, not. But Mike Brown finally getting his deserved credit.
He better win Coach of the Year.
Yes, he will win.
We're going to revisit this if he doesn't.
Oh, there will be, because then that's also going to be on the journalists.
Yeah.
And the players, and that's just, but okay. Well, I think we have broken down the Western Conference because that's as tight as it can be, and it's going to be changing by tonight probably. If someone loses, they're going to be bumped down.
Right.
They're going to be bumped down to the 9th seed. So who knows how it's going to be like? That's why I wasn't really keeping any stats too much because I was just like last night. I'm like 3 things have already changed for my script. So that's why we're doing it a little bit, having a little extra fun with this today. Because I got a little bit confused on what we should be doing. But so on that note, let's swing it over to some home team situations since we are going into the playoffs. I'm on some streaks. My team itself, I know Shea, the Brooklyn, they got a little bit of an easier schedule left. Jade, I got nothing on what the Raptors are going to be like for you right now.
Well, as Raptors fans, we're used to that from our American counterparts. So I tease.
Sorry.
I follow them on Instagram, Twitter. I follow them on all of the social media outlets.
So we have an even week this week. We've all got 3 games. We'll start with the Timberwolves coming off of a really good week, Taylor. Let's talk about last week for the Timberwolves, and then we'll talk about this week coming.
I have no idea.
Right? I haven't looked at
we had Ant drop out with what we all thought was a season-ending ankle injury. Like the way you could hear him scream and everything.
I saw the replay of that, and I felt it.
That was the first time he had also ever taped his ankle up. So it was one of those things where, like, if he wouldn't have taped up his ankle,
could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, but so we get a tough win without Ant and Cat. And then first game, Cat comes back, hits 2 game-winning free throws. The game after that, hits a game-winning 3-pointer against the Warriors. And then last night, we did not have any Cat. No problem. The rest of we had like 6 or 7 players in double figures. There was 5 players in between 15 to 20 points. Like it was team basketball at its finest. Plus, it was back and forth the entire way. Like neither team made it easy for either one. Plus, also, once again, we'll be talking about the reffing later. Boy, this was rough reffing. Holy crap, it was rough. But besides that,
I'm just going to tease Taylor just a little bit here because in our WhatsApp chat for the show, when I don't know whoever went out, but you were like, our season's done. It's over.
It was Ant.
Everything's going to be over. Nothing's ever. And I'm just like, I'm looking at my phone like, okay, Taylor.
Well, in my defense, that was literally right after the injury, and we didn't know the prognosis. It was just when I saw the injury, I thought we were done. Because the way he screamed, and then when he came back in a walking boot, walking gingerly, I was like, no. I'm like, that was the season for us. Like, first it was with Cat, and now I was just like, but everyone's been playing stepped up. I'm excited to see how Ant plays with Connolly, or Cat plays with Connolly.
Mm-hmm.
A much more level-headed player.
Yeah.
Someone to keep him in check, too.
All right, so for this week, you've got 2 games on the road, 1 at home. Tomorrow, you're at Phoenix. Friday at LA Lakers, and Sunday at home to the Trailblazers.
We're going to lose to the Suns because KD comes back.
Right.
Yeah.
During that game, right?
Yeah, what? I just saw that from Bleacher Report that he's making his home debut versus the Timberwolves.
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right, Lakers on Friday in LA.
I got to see what the Lakers are, what their last 10 has looked like.
They're 6-4 and they lost
in their last 10.
One.
I'm going to say a win.
All right.
Because we're going to be full health.
True.
We're going to be full. We're not going to do back-to-backs and stuff, everything. Because the Cat didn't play last night because of a back-to-back, since it was. So he did not. So now with the Lakers on Friday, which is also a very key game because Lakers are 9th, we are just out of the – technically, we are tied for the 7th seed right now. But with the Warriors –
Three-way tie with the – or sorry – two-way with the Warriors, but also only a half a game from the Pelicans.
But with the Warriors, if we end up, say, the same record, since we have a better record in the Western Conference than they do,
you'll have home court.
We get home court advantage over them. Yeah. So that means we get the head position, which I was like, since when are we ahead of the Warriors in like
that's what we're talking about this season. Like everything is upside down. And so Sunday you've got the Trailblazers back at home. Yeah.
They're 1-9 in their last 10.
That was a technicality. So I want to take a moment just to throw back to our last episode. I think it was our last episode or the one before that a few weeks ago, where Taylor asked, the Trailblazers are doing it again. Dame's playing the way he plays. What's going to happen? And I said, we have this conversation every single year. It's the exact same conversation. It's almost playoff time. Dame turns it on. Can they make it? And this year it got answered even faster for us because Dame got shut down for the rest of the season. And the Trailblazers fell like a brick since then. They've lost their last 3. So once again, Dame, if you like, he's never going to win because he wants his loyalty, which is fine. Good for him.
I respect the boy.
Be realistic, Dame. Your organization does not have the tools to help you.
Right.
Whenever I think of loyal players that have stuck with their teams for their like entire career, they've still, even down to their last season, were still successful teams. I guess minus like Kobe, but like Dirk Nowitzki. I think of Reggie Miller. He played 20 years with the Pacers. Yeah. And for the most part, even till it's his last year, they were number 1 in the Eastern Conference for a couple years span. So always still successful.
They probably would have won a championship in Reggie's last year if Malice at the Palace hadn't happened.
I was just thinking that.
They that year was a defensive team's year to win.
Because the year before, I don't want to say I felt like they got lucky, but that Tayshaun Prince block. Yeah. That's what if on Reggie too, they could have done that. They would have won that series, but they had so many chances. But poor Reggie,
so many near misses.
All
right, so we got a loss and 2 wins in the prediction column for Taylor's Timberwolves this week. Going on to the Nets. The Nets at home all week long. So have you been watching? And I know you've been away and stuff.
I've been away, and then because I'm in Connecticut, it is UConn country. We have been watching both men's and women's March Madness. So that's been kind of taking up some of my time. So I'm catching up on everything online, mostly Reddit and Twitter. So I'm a little behind.
I think the biggest story for me since I've been, my general following of the NBA with the Nets is that the loss of the superstars hasn't done a ton in either direction. They definitely didn't get considerably worse. They are still in the 6th seed, tied with the Heat.
Exactly.
So and Cam Thomas is the story.
And I even think Spencer Dinwiddie, I think that it's actually been it's favorable for me because it makes the Nets a scrappy team again. They're scrappy. They have heart. I think sometimes when you get those big personalities in there, especially multiple big personalities, you lose some of that kind of underdog energy and motivation. Yeah. And so I think the Nets are actually more fun to watch this way. I did I think it was the Nets and the Kings. I mean, this was probably 2 weeks ago now, but I sat down and watched that game and it was a great game. It was fantastic. And so it's good to see that energy back. And that's why I wanted to follow the Nets in the first place. It had nothing to do with the 3 big time guys. And like I prefer teams like this. So
I
I
think
know.
I
I'm
think
excited.
New York will be more willing to embrace a Nets team that's like that as well. A little
Yeah,
bit. I think there will be some people who will be willing to consider the Nets as this makeup who wouldn't be when Kyrie and KD were still there, because New
exactly.
York's a hard city. It's a grinded out city. It's not LA. It's not glitz and glam and as its, its overall persona. So like I think those coming in and trying to be big and flashy has worked against Brooklyn for the fan base. So maybe this will help them get a little more goodwill in the
And
city
Kyrie
by
was a wild card for Brooklyn.
but Kyrie's a wild card, period.
Anywhere. But I
Keep
think
Anywhere.
talking amongst
like
yourself.
New
I gotta go.
Yorkers
Be
are
right
like,
back.
All right, so this week you guys have tomorrow the Rockets, Friday the Hawks, and Sunday the Jazz, all 3 games at Barclays Center.
okay, so Rockets win.
Yep.
And then you said it Jazz?
Hawks first on
Hawks.
Friday.
I'm gonna go ahead and call that a win.
I like it. The Hawks are super inconsistent.
Exactly.
They don't seem to like, they're just, I can't really say much more than that they are inconsistent. And then, I'm hoping they stay inconsistent because right now the Raptors and the Hawks are tied.
Ooh, yeah.
And the Heat the Hawks are in 8th and the Raptors are in 9th. So like I'd like to play that game at home if we have to play them.
Exactly.
Rather
Also
than in
because like you
Atlanta.
said, they are inconsistent. And I
Yeah.
actually think that them coming to Barclays is it's gonna add to that inconsistency. And then that could also help you if you do have to play them as well. Because if you're on a home court advantage,
Everything matters. We can't stress it enough. Everything matters.
Everything. Every
And
little
then
thing.
on Sunday you finish up your week at home versus the Jazz.
I'm gonna say a loss on that one.
Yeah.
That could be either way, but I think the Jazz is just a little bit more put together than we are right now.
Well, the Jazz are in 12th and you guys are in 6th.
I know,
and I know it's a West-East thing, but like that's a lot of spots that the Nets are ahead.
No, it's true.
And the Jazz have lost 4 of their last 10, 4 in a row, and 4 of their last 10. So like you never know, but we'll see how it is. So we've got another similar record, 2 wins and a loss for the Nets predictions this week. For the Raptors, we have tonight against the Heat at home. I'm going to call that a win just because the Heat also really inconsistent this season. They're in
Hero's
7th.
Gone this year.
Sorry?
Hero's gone this year. After this year.
I would think so too.
So?
Oh, yeah. They can get some money for him. And maybe it's also a Lowry thrown into that into that too.
Interesting.
Honestly, the way that the Heat played this year, I wouldn't be surprised if anybody was on the table. Because
really?
none of it's cohesive.
I'd still keep on. I mean, this is just me. I'd still keep on Bam.
Bam had.
Who would you build around then?
Right. No, that's true.
I don't think there's anybody on the Heat I want to build around right now.
So just blow up the entire thing. I
think the whole thing needs to be blown up. Like they're too good an organization with too much talent on this roster for it to be going with this much mediocrity, I think. So I think they need to just retool the whole thing, but that's just me. So I think we're going to beat the
That's
Heat.
Different. Remember, we've retooled and rebuild is different.
I think they should.
You're switching out places.
I think they should rebuild.
Okay.
I think they
just got to make sure because
they're not going to.
We'll still keep Butler and Bam. Maybe switch out a player or two, but no, then you just everywhere. Yeah. Okay.
And then we got Friday at Philadelphia. I'm going to call that a big fat loss because Philadelphia, but you never know. And then Sunday at Hornets, I'm going to call that a win. So all of us are thinking 2 wins and a loss this week.
Whoop, whoop.
We'll see how it goes. And then this is our second last week or third last week of the whole season.
Ah!
Like what? And then playoff time. So
And
with
it's one of
that,
my favorite times of the year.
we will kick it back over to Taylor for the next segment and see how our weeks go for our home teams.
Okay, well, so Eastern Conference, pretty much the exact same situation as the Western Conference. People are jostling for position, and it's a little bit different in the fact where it's more so, say, 6th and 7th at Nets and Heat, same record. And then 7th, or 8th and 9th, you have Raptors and Hawks, same record, like you were just saying, Jade. And then you have Bulls that are they're only a game behind the Hawks and Raptors. So a little bit different of how everything is set up, but still a really tight race.
Yeah.
Are we going to see more changes in the East, or is these spots kind of solidified, Jade?
I think there's a chance from 5th right down to play-in positions that things could change. Fourth, I think 4th and up is pretty much set.
Well, 4th and up they're already playoffs.
They're in playoffs, but like in terms of positioning, like
gotcha.
The Celtics are 2 back of the Bucks. Yeah, they might take it. I don't really see that happening. The Sixers are 3 more games back. The Cavs are 6.5 games back of the Bucks. So like, I don't see a lot of movement in there. I think it's possible, but like between 5th and 10th, I think everybody could still move. There are enough games left to win and lose that I think everybody could end up in a different position than they are. And I think a lot of teams will. Specifically, I really think the Hawks and I think the Raptors will pass the Hawks. I think the Bulls might pass the Hawks.
The Hawks might fall out.
If they pull it to, like, yeah, I don't think it's outside of the realm of the possibility for the Hawks to fall out of the playoffs.
I don't think it's out of, yeah.
So, like, just that in itself means that everything could change in the Eastern Conference.
And I almost wonder if they don't make the playoffs, if that's going to finally be enough motivation for the front office to consider some big changes.
Big changes, yeah. But they're always going to, like, and but the question for the Hawks is, are you going to fire another coach?
Right.
Or are you going to realize that coaching is not your main issue?
It's not the coaching.
They're in complete denial. They're like gaslighting themselves, saying that like Trey will still work out. Being like, it's not going to work. No, yeah, it's still going to work out.
And like, I get how when you have a player like Trey Young, you want to hold on to the hope that it'll turn around.
Because just that talent.
Because the talent, right? And I think the big draft day trade is kind of like a bit of a ghost over their decision making as well. Like, we made this huge move. We don't have Luka Doncic. We have Trey Young instead. I think that is creating a situation of, well, we got to stick with it. Like, how can we do anything but stick with this now?
Well, they both have the same record. Well, Mavs have 1 extra loss, but when it comes to Mavs and Hawks, they both have the same overall record.
But I mean, what would the Hawks record be if they were in the West?
Oh, true. But yeah, I'm curious if either one. I mean, Mavs are probably a little bit different with that one, but so Jade, you said that you could see just Atlanta slipping out of the playoffs altogether. Shay, which team could you see slide out of the playoffs and into the hunt, or just out of it completely?
I mean, oh gosh. I'm kind of hoping the Lakers.
This is East Coast girl.
I didn't know which one you were talking about. Let's be honest. Okay, let me look at West again. I mean East. I'm left-handed, so sometimes I do get my East and West like physically confused. So I blame that on why I get it confused in the NBA too. I mean the Heat. That one makes sense. I could possibly even see the Heat dropping out and the Bulls possibly making it in. Because the Bulls lately have been a little bit more relevant than I feel like they've been all season.
Well, they started hot.
That's true. No, you're right.
They can get back to that to close out the season. because they had a bad middle of the season, but they started so good.
Well, and
That's when
I
they
mean,
had Lonzo.
it really
True.
could be like Billy Donovan is really good at that whole like don't look at the middle of our season, but the bookends are really great.
Really
You know?
good,
And like
yes.
I know that because of those years at OKC where it was like, dear Lord, wait, we're in where for the conference? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I could see that possibly happening. But yeah, I mean, same with Atlanta. I wouldn't be surprised. That wouldn't, yeah, no. Because
I just love that it's
off
possible.
my radar. So
I love that it's possible for this to happen this season. Like,
right.
I hated the idea of the play-in tournament, but I cannot argue with the results.
Right. It's like, what else would we do for this kind of result? Like, it's hard.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just one that came to my mind. So you have the 7th through 10th seed: Heat, Hawks, Raptors, Bulls. So which one of these teams should really think about? I mean, Jade, you brought up Heat blowing it up, but like the Hawks themselves, do they think about blowing up? The Bulls, do they think about it? I don't include your Raptors, Jade, because at least you got Scotty Barnes and you guys got other pieces to
Right.
build
And
around.
we understand that we are in a retooling phase right now.
Yes,
Like, we
these are
have young
teams that
talented.
were
We know that
established
that's where
or
we
falling.
are. Yeah.
And that's different. Yeah.
But I think the Bulls could be a lot better. I don't think if I was in the Bulls front office, I'd be trying to change too much. I think I would be trying to see, can we be consistent with the way that we started?
Injury issues this year too.
Also that, yeah.
Caruso was huge.
Right.
He was gone for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see Hawks the most because they've been on that radar of like, do we rebuild, retool? What do we do?
They don't have a clue what they're doing in Atlanta. Like, that seems more obvious. They don't know what to do around Trey. They don't know how to make it work. They're just going to keep changing out coaches.
I mean, they were 3 years ago, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they've only dropped since then.
And but gotten more talented as a roster, like on paper.
Yeah. I'm trying to think about their roster then. And their roster, though, has roughly stayed the same since then. Well, that's the problem.
Maybe.
It's stayed the same.
That is the problem.
Yeah.
They've put everyone on notice, like, yeah, we're going to put you on the trading block. No one ever gets traded, except the one year they do something with Murray.
But like I'm looking at their roster right now. Like, they have so many, you know how sometimes you look at a team's roster and be like, I don't know who any of those players are. Mm-hmm. And the Hawks, you know everyone: Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Clint Capella, John Collins, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Sadiq Bey, DeAndre Hunter, Okongwu, AJ Griffin. Like, that's 9 guys in before I get to somebody that I don't super know on that team.
Exactly. Like, that's why
they're talented.
It has to be either a common denominator or bad front office / coaching. And I don't think it's the latter.
I think it's a combination. Because like, for some reason the roster still isn't working. Even if Trey is the main issue, which I kind of think it is, I just don't think it's a good fit. I think Trey needs an organization that's more has more discipline than the Hawks have.
It's not willing to. Miami.
Yeah.
Miami.
Come to Miami.
Dallas. Denver.
Pat Riley will take a bat to your leg if you lip off too much.
I mean, even like we were just talking about Billy Donovan and stuff. Like, I could even see possibly him going and having like Mo Cheeks and Billy Donovan kind of whip him into shape.
Ooh, Mo Cheeks especially. He was a guy that took no prisoners.
Exactly.
He is a no prisoners coach.
Like
Mo Cheeks.
And the ATL as a city has a reputation. It's earned a reputation. It's a place that I want to visit for vacation one day, you know? But like,
I'm going there in 2 weeks. But
Are you? Nice.
yeah, that's the only reason I was like, I don't want Atlanta to completely not make the playoffs, because if they happen to be in a playoffs and they're in town when I'm going, we're going to a baseball game because my dad loves baseball, but I'm like,
Right.
but like if they're in the playoffs,
And you're there
Is
anyways.
Atlanta more of, I feel like Atlanta's more of a basketball city than a baseball city. No
It's-
knock against the Braves. No knock against them. They won the world, they won the World Series a couple years ago. So
a
like,
couple years ago, yeah, like
yes. So salute
season
to you
before.
there, Braves. But when I think of Atlanta, I think of the Atlanta Falcons, their football team, and the Atlanta Hawks.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because
The Birds.
The
I
bird
feel
teams.
like people I know from like Oklahoma and places that don't have Major League Baseball teams are Braves fans. While
Oh, yeah.
Atlanta,
Mm.
people in Atlanta are Falcons and Hawks fans. So
Yep.
like it's an interesting thing because they have a fan base, but I don't know if the fan base
not
is
the
in
state.
Atlanta. Like,
It's
The
for the
fan base
surrounding
isn't
states
in
that
the
don't
state.
have a team. That's funny.
exactly. It's like everyone else that's kind of in the vicinity.
It's like with North Dakota and the Minnesota Twins.
Right,
Huge
right.
fan base because they got nothing else there except the NDSU Bison. Which shout out to the Bison, they're good, but yeah. Anywho, that's not basketball. That's baseball and football. Oh, I had something else set up with it. Well, I mean, this will also be an interesting playoffs on the Eastern Conference side, just because we also Cavaliers making it to the playoffs for the first time without LeBron in 50,000 years. So
I believe the year was 2008.
without LeBron,
The last time they made it. The last time they made the playoffs.
without LeBron,
Without
yeah, it would be
LeBron.
2008.
Yeah. That's a long time ago.
Yeah,
Like
that
a
a lot
long
longer
time.
than you think. I mean,
Really?
granted, yes, they did go for a little bit. Oh, yeah, whatever. But I didn't think Donovan Mitchell would blend in as well as he's had with the entire team.
Donovan Mitchell was my favorite pickup for fantasy this year because he was available 40th overall in my draft.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. And I was drafting with Sarah at the time because she's in the league too. And she's like, are you going to take Mitchell on your next turn? Because her turn had passed. And I was like, what do you mean am I going to take Mitchell? Mitchell's not available. Yeah, Mitchell's available. I'm like, what? How is he available? But I think the thing that people underestimated the most about Donovan Mitchell is that on the Jazz, Donovan Mitchell was the youngest guy on the roster. And on the Cavs, he's the oldest.
He's the oldest.
So
right.
it is a fundamental and instant flip of his production on the team. It's no longer scoring behind other people. It's no longer just scoring. He has found his voice. And it's worked out really well for the Cavs, and they're fun. They're a fun team to watch.
They're fun also playing, but also just how they are as a team, how they act around with each other. Like you can tell this
they
team
enjoy each other,
loves each other.
Yes.
Like they even had like when they waved off when they cut Kevin Love, there was even like in the locker room a little tribute because he was like first he hated being that bench guy, but then like the past 2 seasons he just full on engulfed, just fully just dove into the role of like, I'm the bench veteran right now. I'm still going to get crucial plays and moments and stuff. But what I'm here for is you see that entire young squad.
Yeah.
I got to make sure that they can do it right. Maybe that's why Kevin Love, he shouldn't have went to the Miami Heat. Shouldn't have went. He was going for a title. They're not going anywhere for a title.
They're not. Yeah, I know. I didn't love that idea.
But, you know, Kevin Love had been in cold weather his entire career. Let's get him to Miami.
You can't really blame him. As
Let's
somebody
get him to
who
South Beach.
lives in Canada and hates the cold weather, I always understand when people are like, I don't want to live where it's cold. I get it.
Yep. But, all right. Well, so we've hit up both the conferences now and we can only say so much because more than likely within the next 5 minutes, it'll probably change. So I think we'll just then alley-oop to it's Twitter time with Shay.
Woo! Okay, my time. All right. So there's been so much going on, and I've been using Twitter to keep up with like all the on the court, off the court drama. So Bum.
Sorry, I just got an update. A-Rod owns 40% of the Wolves.
40.
Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lore closed $290 million payment toward full ownership of the team.
Wow.
Wow. I just thought he was going to be a face of it, not the entire damn. Okay, sorry. That just showed up on my Bletcher report.
Bletcher. Okay.
Bletcher report. Shout out, Nasty.
This is the first one I'm going to start with. We have from Rax at 15 Onions, how the churn tables. Now, in case you didn't know, there's Westbrook, and there's Patrick Beverly hugging before a game. Are we in the Twilight Zone?
Who is that he's hugging? I can't make out the. Oh,
It's
is it
Russ
Russ?
and Patrick Beverly.
I see.
Like, I think you would have told me that 3 or 4 seasons ago, I'd be like, no way.
No way.
Ever since Bev left the Rockets, so he's like bounced around so many spots that now what used to be the most hated player in the league is now one of the most beloved players in the league.
Because he's played for so many teams.
He's played for so many teams, and now they realize what else he brings to the table.
Yeah.
I'm saying I used to hate the guy, and then he played for us for a season, and then I'm like, now I see what Houston saw in him the entire time. They just got a younger, a little bit crazier version of him. We get the crazy version, but it is a controlled crazy because he knows how to, my big man or my star player's getting all crazy and stuff. I'm going to get crazier so the refs focus on me. And that's crazy seeing that.
So there's a method to his madness that unless you see him play a bunch of games, you can't get the pattern. You just see him acting crazy.
How many times he saved Cat from getting a technical the year he was with us? The amount of times. Because he'd just step in between the ref and then he'd get in the ref's face and then he'd get the technical. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for being the meat shield and you know your role.
And the thing is that like now that he isn't the villain of the NBA, we have Dylan Brooks. We have Dylan Brooks, who
pushover
for so many reasons has been in the news lately, but this tweet sums up kind of how I feel about him. So from Ollie at OllieOD, anytime I hear Devin Brooks speak, I remember this.
Foul going on Brooks, who flops to the deck.
I've never seen that bad in college.
I hate
some of the worst.
I hate talking about Dylan Brooks because he's Canadian.
I will.
And like most of the other Canadian guys are like, yeah, you're Canadian, you're playing basketball. I love talking about you. I love keeping up with you. I would prefer to forget that Dylan Brooks is from my country sometimes.
So I saw that I saw some posts online where he was like talking smack, obviously, to Draymond Green, because that's all people do with Draymond.
Right.
Well, then they pull out a tweet from like 2016 or something like that, where he said, I want to be Draymond Green or something like that. And I'm like, now you're talking trash to a guy that you were like, I want to be him when I grow up.
I mean, in fairness, it wouldn't surprise me that once you got to know Draymond Green, you might change your mind.
Maybe. That's true, too.
Like, I really like Draymond Green, but I know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way.
Oh, yeah. But I think this was Dylan Brooks just wants to be when a player forces themselves to be a villain, that's when you're not a villain for me.
Like, it has to be organic.
Beverly,
Patrick Beverly, Goran Dragic, Grayson Allen. Like, there are lots of names that just naturally fit the villain.
Well, and then Grayson Allen has had that since
college, yes.
He's had that. He's already, and then also, let alone him playing dirty, but also he went to Duke. He was an all 4 years player at Duke, that injured player. And now Dylan Brooks is now just talking a bunch of trash and he's wearing crazy clothes. That's not a villain. That's an annoying little brother. And that's what he is. He's an annoying little brother. Prove me wrong later on. I mean, by all means, like, you've got a long career ahead of you. He's not a terrible player.
No, he's not.
Just a tool right now.
He's a tool. Yeah, we make those here in Canada too.
Wow. No, I'm just kidding. Finally, you admit it. So yeah, there was
Something we've been trying to hint at the entire time, but no.
There was a whole situation, including like Dylan Brooks, and I saw the video, and it was like Dylan Brooks was trying to give his jersey to Kyrie post game, and then it looked like Kyrie refused it. Kyrie later said that he was just like very motivated or like still in his game like mentality, and he didn't really realize. And watching the video makes it look really bad, but he was like, "I'll take it next time. I don't really care." But of course, Charles Barkley had something to say about it.
Of course.
So from NBA Central, Charles Barkley on Kyrie not taking Dylan Brooks jersey post game. I don't blame Kyrie at all. The F he gonna do with a Dylan Brooks jersey? Hanging on his wall? He's gonna be scaring the hose with that one. And that is what I expected Chuck to say about that.
I hate Charles Barkley sometimes.
I was like, okay.
Like the use of the word hose is massively problematic for me.
Massively. Massively. I was like, did he say this on live television?
Like,
yeah, he did.
Yeah.
I'd say about 2/3 of that comment I love.
Right.
2/3 of it.
So close.
And if he could have worded so many other stuff than using what he used with the hose.
Like,
right.
He could have just said scaring women.
Okay, but here's the thing though. In the proper usage of the word hoe, which there is a proper usage.
Right.
No hoes are going to be scared away from any dude with money.
True.
Even if they have a Dylan Brooks, like if you're actually a hoe, you're not getting scared away from a guy with money.
That's how scary he is.
For any
That's
reason.
how bad he is. Anyways, let's be real. Kyrie is not going to be having people like that over.
He also has like a like consistent girlfriend. Like I don't know how their relationship is set up, but he has like a baby mama who lives with him, who is his like consistent girlfriend. Like whatever. I thought there was a lot of stuff going on in that comment. And I'm just like, Chuck, this is not 1991. Like you cannot
really, really.
Like, come on, dude. And yeah, like even if he had just stopped at hang it on his wall, great comment. Great.
Yeah.
Like I said, that first 2/3 is brilliant. It's like classic Chuck. And then next thing you know, it's like,
and then you get to a critical problem.
And it's like, oh, now you went from lovable 2000s Chuck to early 90s I'm no role model Chuck.
Yes.
You bounced back real quick for a second there.
A little bit of regression happening.
I know I keep going, but y'all, there was a lot this week.
No, bring it. We've been
Like,
off for
a
2
lot.
weeks.
It was so much. Okay, so I don't know if you guys heard, but Bradley Beal is currently being investigated for battery. Now, that sounds really bad when you first say it. But when I read the whole thing, I was like, okay.
Someone's trying to get some money.
I was like
walking off the court and a fan, it was in Orlando. I don't even know if it was an Orlando fan or whatever, but yelled at him and basically said, you cost me like $1,200.
Yeah.
And Bradley Beal was like, okay, I don't care. I don't play the game for your bets, and knocked the fan's hat off.
Yeah.
And so this made me laugh. So that's what he's being investigated
by police for that shit.
For a hat off. Like, I don't even think his hand was on the man. It was his hat. Whatever.
No,
but
exactly. It's a guy that's trying to look for money.
Exactly. So from Carlton Banks Burner, if Bradley Beal knocked my hat off, this lady falling to the ground.
She must have been taking flopping lessons from Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
Like when I heard that, because I was just like, oh, battery. And then I saw it with fans, and then I heard it involved betting. And I was like, you know what? I hope he dropped the guy.
Right.
Well, and like just like the things that become a big deal in the NBA just kind of always remind me of how small a world the NBA universe actually is. Because like in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't matter at all.
Right.
And how is this a good use of police resources?
Right.
over a hat being knocked off. Like,
Welcome to Florida, baby.
really? Like, how?
The
Like
guy's
Will
lawyer is
Smith.
gonna be like a gator with like a real weird mustache with
Will
it. Like,
Smith
say my
slapped
client
Chris
here.
Rock in front of the whole world, and police were not involved.
Right.
Like,
it shows, we've talked about it before on this show many times, about this just shows the like privilege that players think that, or players, that fans think they have towards
Yeah.
players.
they're like there's such a big segment of fans whose fundamental stance towards players is dehumanizing, like fundamentally dehumanizing. Like, you are only there for my entertainment. You need to play all the games because I say so.
Right.
Like, things should happen this way or that way, and it's like these are people. These are human people, and they have different problems and challenges than us, but they have problems and challenges that go along with their life and their work, just like everybody else does.
I was gonna say. Oh well.
Well, I have one more, and it's specifically for TJ. So
I remember.
I'll let you go first. Yeah.
They should have. I feel like if you're gonna get courtside seats or something like that, you should sign like a waiver where, like, if you do this, this, or this, you're kicked out automatically.
Right.
Like, you should not be getting. If you're right in a player's face when they're passing the ball in or something like there's got to be some waiver, some forms that
I don't think fans should be that close to the court.
Yeah.
Like hockey, football, baseball, soccer, cricket, like you can just go down the list of professional sports. No other professional athletes are forced to deal with fans at that proximity than basketball players. No other sport can you be injured falling into fans or cameramen in the course of doing your job.
Right.
Because they're that close to everything. Like, I think it's ridiculous that that's how. I know it's never going to change, but like, there should not be camera people on the baseline under the net where players are constantly.
Where Dylan Brooks can push people.
Where people can be pushed, where players are constantly having to use up the rest of their momentum is under the basket, and there's no place for them to go unless they are able to get into those two little aisleways. Like, it blows my mind that fans are allowed to be that close to basketball players when no other sport is like that. And the other sports are not like that for a reason.
Right.
Well,
fans don't need to be that
football and
close.
soccer, the stadiums are massive, so you can't really do it. The fields itself are massive. So it's hard to do something like that with that. So, and the same with baseball is not the same kind of build of a field.
True.
Right, but it's a fundamental thing that only basketball players have to deal with.
Yes.
And like Shay said, there's an entitlement that comes with being that close, having that kind of access.
Yeah, and it's like, as though the other sports have gotten bigger, they've done something in order to separate the masses from the players. And basketball is kind of the only one that, because it's inside, I mean, hockey's inside too, but like, they just have kept it similar.
And I mean, it doesn't need to be that big of a change, like an extra 2 feet all the way around. The cameras are still going to get the shots. You're still courtside at, like, an extra 2 feet is still a courtside experience. It's not a big enough difference to ruin the experience, but it creates some separation from the players so they can do their job without being interrupted and yelled at and all of that stuff.
But
all right, last one for TJ. From Jake Graffs, attention, if you or somebody you know said that the Timberwolves would be good, and four players together before making definitive conclusions on their performance or trades, you may be entitled to financial compensation.
That's amazing.
I saw this and wanted to send it to you, but I was like, no, I'm going to read this on air.
The way you read it, too,
is perfect.
Is that there is an injury hotline, like lawyer hotline, where I can guarantee you they are spoofing off of this.
I'm right.
And that's why I burst out laughing, because it was just like, oh, this is the injury at law hotline. Like, this is, There had been two things. There's this guy in the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul, Chris Lindahl. He's like this huge real estate agent, I guess. And he's got billboards everywhere across the city with his hands like straight out in the air.
Oh,
You see Chris Lindahl commercials, and then you see the 1-800 attorney law, whatever, and it's set up the exact same way. So I'm really curious if they're doing this in the same way. But
well, I mean, he's got the little Timberwolves guy as his profile pic.
oh man,
So maybe he's local.
Jake's graphs. Maybe are you from the Twin Cities area? Oh, well, you are followed. Oh, then yeah, this is definitely someone from Minnesota. Canis Hoopus is one of the main Timberwolves pages.
Oh,
that's funny.
I'm surprised they didn't use Ant's dog, Ant Jr. Ant's got like this like pit bull dog that's absolutely adorable. Pretty sure it has its own Instagram page.
Oh,
I love that.
No,
all right, well, that's my tweets. I caught up on all that drama via the Twitter. So, well, and there was more drama with Trey. Yeah, like, come on, I could have had so much.
Atlanta would have been the hot Atlanta. It would have been like the hot spot for drama this year, not Brooklyn, not LA.
Right.
It's Atlanta.
Trae Young threw a basketball at a ref. Like,
yes, he did.
Because reffing issues got to go. That's why he threw the ball at him. It's because those reffing issues got to go.
That was good. That was good.
All right. Well, so talking about Trae Young and just him throwing the ball. So Freddie VanVleet, last week, whatever, we all saw, said what every single player has been wanting to say forever. And he said, I'm not worried about getting fined and stuff.
Yep,
he complained about the refs and stuff.
F it, give me the fine. I'm going to say what
I'm
going
to
to
say it. But right after he said it, so other players are coming out of the grass trying to say their case too. Two of the people that started complaining were Trae Young and Luka. Trae Young, the 2 games before, had shot 12 free throws. The game before, he shot 14. And the game that day, he said the comment, he had shot 16. And then Luka is one of the league leaders for free throws too.
I thought you were going to say for complaining to the refs.
Oh, well, that too, for complaining to the refs. Are the wrong players complaining about the refs?
Maybe. It's so hard to say because on the one hand, I think if you are not a high caliber player, you already don't get the whistle. You already do not have the ear of the refs if you are not a top, whatever number you want to put player in the
Unless
NBA.
you're Austin Reeves.
Unless you're, right, except for a few outliers. But like on the other hand, it is hard. There is an element of, maybe crying wolf a little too much with the players who are complaining. Fred, for example, Fred is usually pretty diplomatic when he wants to complain about the refs. In fact, my handle auxiliary things comes from Fred being diplomatic when he really wanted to complain about the refs, but he called it auxiliary things that we had to deal with in the game to avoid the fine. So
he's got 8 technicals this year.
So he
not a lot.
And like the fact that he called out a specific ref by name was.
And then they get in trouble for it.
Well, did they though? I don't think that report ended up actually being true.
About them getting demoted?
Yeah, he didn't actually get demoted. It was just it looked like it did because the way the schedules were set up, because they take times being the head, the crew leader, and just a referee. That schedule's made in advance. So it just happened to turn out that the next bunch of games that Ben Taylor officiated after Fred, he was not the crew chief. So it looked like he was demoted, but he wasn't really. And the fact that the NBA never addressed it, like the NBA is not going to demote a ref over something like that and not put out a statement. There's just no way that happens that way. But that said, like you said, it started this wave of players, Marcus Smart saying like what Freddie said, and like Luka Trae. The officiating's bad. It's been bad for years. We know this. This is a known fact. Now, I think the NBA is getting to the point where they have an option. They can fix it instead of, creating a mid-season tournament that nobody cares about, including the players. How about you fix the officiating? How about you fix the All-Star game? Like, let's worry about the things that are always going to be part of the game that need work. And I don't even think that most of the officials are bad. I don't think most of the officials are trying to fix games. I wouldn't go as far to say that any of them are doing that. The system is the same as it was in the 80s. The game is not the same as it was in the 80s. So how do you think that an officiating system from an era of basketball that was slower,
40 years ago,
that was more defensive and less offensive, less scoring, harder calls, right? Like James Harden's double step back shooter. You have to be paying attention to see if he travels because he has to do it perfectly to not travel when he does that.
But when he does get it perfect, I hate to say it, but it is beautiful.
It's beautiful. But in terms of the reffing, that's more attention you now have to pay to James Harden to make sure that he hasn't traveled while the other
you're going to see some
9 guys, the other 9 guys on the floor are still playing basketball. But you've got a set of eyes that has to just focus on that. The dribble handoffs. Like, the game has evolved and the officiating hasn't. That, I think, is the fundamental problem. It's not that the officials are corrupt or they're trying to blah, blah, blah. Although we know that stuff does go on too. Overall, I think it's just a matter of the NBA hasn't addressed a system that no longer works for the game as it is.
Shay, so there's been a lot more altercations among players this season, a lot of face-to-face, like nothing real fights, but a lot more just heated situations.
Yeah.
Is this coming from the inconsistency from the reffing and making the emotions of players a little bit hotter, or is this just players just got to get over themselves a little bit?
I mean, I think players do need to respect like some of the rules, but also they know the consequences. So for example, like Freddie speaking out against it, it's not like he doesn't know what the consequences are going to be, because like the other issue though is that there is a power hierarchy here. Players should be able to speak out against these fundamental issues, as Jade's pointing out. And the fact that more than one player is picking up on it, and fans are picking up on it, and coaches are picking up on it, this should not necessarily lead to consequences, just because like you should be able to speak out about it. Yeah. I think there's something like kind of weird there, and it's a little archaic.
It's very plantation.
Yes. Yeah. Like you can't speak out against the people. Like I think in a game, sure, why not? Like you shouldn't be able to like make money signs like Luka did. Like I can see why that was a technical. Fine, whatever. During a game, because that's during working hours.
Yes.
But you speaking out against like the officials, I don't think should be an issue like when it's not in the heat of the moment, because something does need to change. So it's like it's
also the thing that's been different, I think, this year as well, besides there being more confrontation between players, is that just in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there have been at least 2 instances where a questionable call changed the outcome of a game.
Right.
Like that can't happen. The refs cannot be deciding games like that. People didn't pay $300 for their tickets so that Scotty Barnes could get a technical foul that changes it from a 1-possession game to a 2-possession game. It happened to the Mavs, I think, this week too. Yeah, because they're sending a formal complaint to the NBA. Like, yes, the refs are human. They're not going to get everything right all the time. But the games can't come down to calls made by refs that are not on the up and up. Like just clearly, obviously good calls. Games can't come down to that.
You can't have the refs on the opposite side of the court calling the calls.
Also that's
what happened to the Wolves last night and to the Kings. Just overall, there was refs from opposite sides of the court calling stuff. And There
Like,
was
how?
about 3 different times where the refs would have to all group together, and one of them would be like, "What did you see?" I was literally right next to them. What did you see that I didn't?
Yeah.
One of the times they're just like, "No, just check the ball. Nothing happened." The other 2, yeah, they called a foul, and they're just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, but no, it's and then just how simple they have been with technicals this year.
They
They
throw
have
out
been,
technicals like it's candy and they are in a parade.
yes, it is. It is. I'm just looking at all the different players that have it, and then you have some that are kind of usual, not surprised with, but then you have players like we were saying. I don't know if we mentioned this before, but DeMar DeRozan, he's got 12.
Yeah. I don't know how that's possible. Like, and I watched DeMar DeRozan play basketball for a long time for a team that never got the friendly end of the whistle because the Raptors never get the friendly end of the whistle.
He's got more technicals than Marcus Smart and Patrick Beverly.
I don't understand how that can be possible.
Like, no, I'm looking at other players on this list, like PJ Tucker too, Chris Paul.
PJ Tucker, like Chris Paul.
He's got only 6.
Like, the other thing I've noticed a lot too is, crap, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, the free throw disparity.
Yes.
There have been major free throw disparities in multiple games.
Most involving the Lakers.
Lots involving the Lakers because we know LeBron gets that all-star whistle.
But hasn't been there though.
But he's not even playing. Like,
it was against the Suns. Monty Williams pointed out, yeah, we shot 20 free throws. That's a lot. Lakers
how
shot
do you
46.
get 46 free throws? That's almost a free throw a minute, guys.
Right. Like, that's
how?
And I think
and that's not the only time that's happened. Because I checked the box scores. It happens frequently.
There's
that
at
a
least
team has
one game
twice
a night
as many
like
free
that.
throws. Like, there's no way that's possible the way that NBA players are playing basketball, that one team should have that many more. Ever. Like, I don't think that should ever happen.
Like, last night, there was a lot of free throws shot for both teams. None of them were necessarily from, like, shooting fouls. It was ticky-tack reach-in fouls and stuff like that ended up just like, oh, we're in the bonus. So it was just even more just ticky-tack fouls that were causing free throws to come along. So
right.
it just showed how even more whistle happy they were last night. So, like, you're not getting the free throw line because you went up for a shot or anything. No, it's because you did a quick little reach-in that would usually get blown by. But I'm going to call it on the
We're going to call it. We're going to call it anyways.
Yeah. But, Jade, and I'm going to ask this to you, to Shay. Do you think all of this has kind of become more prevalent because of the new ability to gamble with the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're noticing it more because we are now seeing ways that it applies to something specific that is absolutely measurable, which is people's money. I think before I do think it's gotten worse over the years. I think we have a lot of younger refs than we had in previous years that are just, I hate to use the term, but too sensitive. Like, it's your job. Like, nobody is attacking you personally. They are objecting to the way you're doing your job. You should be able to take that when your job is to interrupt their work to tell them you fouled somebody or you stepped out of bounds. Like, when that is your entire job, you should be able to field a conversation from a player. A player should be able to say things. Obviously, there are things, there's a line. But these are the best basketball players in the world. They're trying to compete to the best of their ability, and you want them to behave like they're working an office job when they're essentially criticized and they don't agree with it. And a lot of the calls have been bad. Like, we know this. it's not a perfect system. It's not a good system for the NBA. So like, what do you expect players to do? You're literally saying we can do a subpar job, but you have to do your best job and you have to take the fact that my job affects yours.
Right.
But you can't say anything.
That's what I don't like is like they obviously play into each other. So
It just makes it even that much more shady now, though, that now there's the gambling aspect with it. So you could be the idea of possibly throwing a game or something like that, controlling a game, I feel could be an uprise again. This could be Tim Donaghy all over again, or at least the feel. I don't think it's going to, but now since it's open that you can do it, I feel like there could be a lot more loopholes where they could get to that kind of stuff and not get in trouble.
I think it was a big mistake for the NBA not to address this before betting became such a huge thing.
A huge deal. Yeah.
Like they are behind the ball now. And they're not even, it doesn't even seem like they're talking about, like they're renegotiating the collective bargaining agreement. So I'm hoping this is something that the Players Association brings up and it's not just the thing that's, you know, going to happen on the court during the season and then it's going to go away. But like I think about like the NBA needs to get it together because right now they have credibility. And if they don't address this, they're going to lose credibility. Like the NFL lost all credibility for me, what little it had. When I found out their refs are not employed full time.
Wow.
And NFL refs have day jobs.
Wow.
So like there's no impetus for them to get better, to learn the rules. And
Right.
I watched some football games when I was with Sarah because she's into football. I'm done with football now unless I date somebody else that likes football. But like watching the games, like they don't know how to call things. Half the time they don't know what they're doing. Like they're visibly confused about things. And to me, that makes the whole game lack credibility for me. And I think if the NBA doesn't address this soon, they're going to be getting into that point where it's like, I want to watch a game where the outcome is because of the teams that are playing. I want the calls to be fair. I want the free throws to be fair, especially when we have a league that is so even right now. Like, this is good for the league, for everybody's teams to be competitive, and then the refs are going to come in and mess it up.
Yeah.
Like, the NBA should not want this. They should be actively trying to avoid this.
Considering they're kind of the squeaky clean league of all of the four major sports in the U.S., they got to keep it, or else it's going to drop. Well, I think we've done a pretty solid job figuring out what's going to be happening in the East and West Coast for the.
By which we mean none of us have any idea what's going to happen.
Yes, and that's exactly what I meant. And we've also hit up our frustrations of the ongoing issue of, are these refs really refs, or are they just some people that found the outfits right before and they went on the court? Like, ooh, this is a new outfit. And of course, we had all of our fun stuff together with the Twitter time, with the home teams. But before we wrap up today, I do have our fast break, which comes from me having 3 questions that Shay and Jay have zero knowledge of. I'm going to see if they can answer it. So, first question. Who has the most points without free throws? Luka, Steph, LeBron, or Dame?
It's definitely not LeBron. Eliminate him right off the bat. Luka,
I want to say Dame.
I want to say Dame too.
It is Luka.
Ah!
Wow.
It is Luka. So there you go. There's another player who's you're still getting buckets. Okay. Well, now speaking of LeBron, he came off the bench this past game. Total, how many times has LeBron came off the bench?
I know this one, so I'll let Shay go first.
Shay.
5 times.
Jade.
Including last time too.
Yes.
That's it?
Two times in his whole career has LeBron played off the bench.
Both of them were coming off of injuries.
Makes sense.
Yep. And last
No,
question.
it does make sense. That's true.
Who has more minutes together? Mikal Bridges, Cam Thomas, and Spencer Dinwiddie, or the big three from before?
I bet it's the new three.
The new three, yeah.
What's the difference?
The time changed a little bit because of last night. But it's like the big three was like 385 minutes, and so far the new three are over 400 minutes.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, well, shoot.
Well, yeah.
And they were there. I mean, Harden was only there for months.
A third of a season.
Months. But none of them were healthy. Like Kevin Durant, again, is just coming back from being injured.
Well, that was I felt bad for that injury. Layup line, sprained your ankle.
Man. Well, and I think he slipped, like the floor was wet.
No, the floor was wet too. No, it was just like a worst case. Like, really? The only player I can ever think of that had a more, like, for me, when they had an injury during the layup line was Grant Hill, his last year. He was just like, he was going up for a dunk, his last thing, and he tore a ligament in his knee. And he, like, from there on out, he's like, yeah, my career's done.
I was literally thinking about Grant Hill yesterday. And just like, oh, he was so good.
Dude,
people don't understand.
Fierce.
He was like, if he'd have got to have like a long career, he'd be one of those players that everybody still talks about.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, he was gonna be gonna be the guy that was supposed to take the torch from Michael for a split second.
Yeah, and he was that good.
He was. Just think if him and Tracy McGrady would have been able to play with each other healthy in Orlando. Oh, maybe I wouldn't be saying Doc Rivers is an overrated coach.
Or maybe we still would, because he would have had.
Yeah, that's very true. You have Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady.
But in the Eastern Conference then, man, they would have walked all over everybody.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been fun. It's been a meaty episode because we are trying to vamp up for the playoffs. Like I said, we're about to catch that bus to the playoffs. It's going to be leaving from the station in about 5 minutes. So I think we better wrap up for today. So on that note, Hoopers and Hoopettes, have a good day.
All right.
Bye. Ending.